It's that time of year when football fans are largely in limbo between seasons, which is a great time to scope out what's going on in the larger world of football. The Super Bowl, which saw the LA Rams win in front of a home crowd in the newly built SoFi Stadium, is now more than a month in the history books at this point, but there's plenty of football and football-related activity now and in the coming weeks, which is the focus of this episode of Before, Behind, and Between.
Podcast starts now.
If you're a fan of North American football and it's March, what do? Well, last week, beginning on March 12, we saw the first weekend of play for the new season of the Indoor Football League. While not everyone is a fan of football played inside an arena, the game in various forms has been around for decades. The Arena Football League, which started in the late 1980s, folded operations in 2019. Which left some clubs with the opportunity to regroup and, in certain cases, to join the Indoor Football League. Kurt Warner, the focus of a movie out right now, and an earlier era LA Ram, refined his chops playing inside an arena for the Iowa Barnstormers, one of those teams that began and flourished in the AFL and continues play in the IFL. So indoor football, it has deep roots, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. When there's no other football at this time of year, I enjoy the quirks of indoor football. Games are streamed live and archived at the YouTube channel for the Indoor Football League. And for those of you who just can't wrap your heads around indoor football, the absence of football in the spring is about to change. The newly constituted USFL begins play in just a few weeks. Fingers are crossed that this league makes it past its first season, an unfortunate outcome that befell the now defunct AAF and the second incarnation of the XFL, which is still on the map in the pending category tentatively slated for next year 2023. In a slightly different twist of football, the Australian Football League has just begun its season. Fans of North American football might find adjusting to this game a bit of a challenge, but the intensity of play in this unique blend of rugby and physical roughness is a whole lot of fun to watch. Just set your PVR or stream to record at times like 2 or 3 a.m. Eastern. But you get 4 quarters, each 20 minutes, no commercials during the quarters, and the only time the clock stops is when the ball is out of bounds, when blood is visible on a player, or following a goal. This game has been around since the 1800s, and the fan base is rabid and loyal. It's definitely worth checking out. Of course, there's NFL and CFL combines that are fielding potential talent from universities and colleges. On the CFL front, chiefs and head honchos are considering different ways to evolve the game in Canada. Something they do every year, considering tweaks here and there. But this year, there's some limited discussion among social media groups about moving the game to a 4-down format. Traditional CFL fans won't have any of that. Of course, if the unique format of the Canadian game is removed, there's that much less Canadian about it. Interestingly, the league commissioner has been reminding fans that the game has always been in constant evolution, and that the championship trophy, the Grey Cup, was originally awarded to the best team competing in amateur rugby football back in the 1800s. Also, as a mention to recap listeners, officials representing both the Spring League and the current version of the XFL had a number of chit-chats with CFL officials over the past couple of years to determine if and how a collaboration between leagues might take shape. Those discussions were intriguing, but never resulted in any concrete plan, vision, or agreement. The NFL draft is just a few short weeks away, something I always look forward to, as well as the movie Draft Day, which interestingly has become somewhat of a ritual to watch around the time of the NFL draft. And this year particularly, I'm reminded of an old friend of mine who passed away several years ago, who suggested that the NFL draft has become more of a pageant. I suppose he might be correct, but admittedly I love watching it. He described his experience on his draft day, which was in such stark contrast to today's festivities, of learning through a simple phone call that he'd been chosen to play for what was then the Cleveland Rams, the team that would ultimately become this year's Super Bowl champs as the LA Rams. Interesting sometimes how things circle back. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Before, Behind, and Between, which is a podcast of Henley Point Productions. Visit stephenchristiansen.ca for more episodes. This podcast is available on all streaming platforms and podcast apps, including Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and TuneIn. I'm your host, Stephen Christiansen. Thanks for listening.
A production of Stephen Christensen. Podcast complete.